Hello, George Holiday.
Luke, we're back.
We're back. Season 2.
Can we remember what we're doing here? Can we remember?
Talking. You never forget how to talk, George. It's like riding a bike, I think the saying goes.
Many might have thought I haven't spoken a single word since the last series. I've just been coming up with ideas.
I highly doubt anyone that's met you would ever think that would be true.
Welcome to the Hear Me Out podcast, where we talk about everything to do with sound and brands and marketing. Can you remember what the second line is, Luke?
We do. We've helped brands with a combined value in the billions strategize how to use sound, where to use sound. We create it ourselves as the founders, and then we help them implement it into their wider marketing schemes.
For those that are listening, or for those that are listening and not watching, I was fist bumping the air because I was very impressed. I was expecting, not because you don't remember things, but I had no idea what that second line was, so I'm so happy you did.
I riffed it a little bit. It wasn't verbatim as it used to be, but you know, it's season 2. We're growing, we're changing.
It is.
They're adapting.
I'm also going to remove these because I realise I haven't turned my headphones on yet, and we just cracked straight in, so we'll figure that out in the edit, and I will happily nominate myself to edit this one.
Done.
We were talking on LinkedIn the other day because we'd seen the McDonald's adverts that are coming out recently where they've been changing their Sonic logo, which we all know. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba, or can I do this one this early in the morning? 2 different keys, but that was quite
Majestic.
They have brought out 2 ads recently. One where the voiceover artist was saying, "Now on to the jingle," and then
Here comes the jingle or something, wasn't it?
It was. And then the other one was about the Big Mac, and it was the big. It wasn't
Big Arch.
Big Arch.
Big Arch was a new release, yeah.
New release, and they had big jungle drums that went doo 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 on the drums, and I was so excited to see that both of these things come out at the same time. Mainly because, Luke, it's big brands talking about how they sound really openly and like actually pointing it out. Normally, all of the work that we do in Sonic branding is subconscious. This was very public. It was very out there. And I think this is a big corner for brands. And I know you've been talking about it a lot.
I've been championing it for a long time. I think the really interesting thing for me is that it shows how flexible and adaptable and expandable Sonic logos, stickers, signatures, whatever you want to call it can be. I think a lot of people see them as quite old school, and like if you don't have a visual logo at the end of all your content, you can't utilize it. You know, it's been pigeonholed and restricted, I think, in a lot of people's minds, whereas this really shows the power of it and where I think it's really going.
And I think the importance of it, I think it's just highlighting very simply that this is a part of our brand and this is a part of who we are. Yeah. And now they're having fun with it. We were saying how so many brands, you know, a big part of our role at the moment as a company is to bring awareness to Sonic branding, because it's so subconscious. You know, music and emotions are so subconscious. You feel them, but are you actually aware of the emotion you're feeling? It kind of just initiates the next decision you make in your life. Whereas this, so that is like 99% of our time. Whereas this is kind of saying the opposite. It's kind of highlighting something as a very crucial part of the brand. And I think that's quite exciting because it's going to help us with the conversation. But it's also, you know, a lot of brands aren't even aware of sound yet, let alone be thinking, how are we now going to adapt our sound into this next generation of sound?
Let alone have it as such an established element that they can break, because they're sort of breaking the fourth wall there in terms of saying, and here comes the jingle. So it's like they've got so many layers of integration, like with their customers and inside their own brand to be able to get to this point. And then you speak to some people and they're not even using sound at all strategically. And you're like, McDonald's, you know, why would you not be learning off of one of the biggest brands in the world? It's like, oh no, we don't need that. Well, McDonald's didn't think that. It's not like McDonald's don't see it as a luxury. Like, oh, it's a nice to have. It's like an essential proponent of their brand image.
It's funny, isn't it? When we talk about Sonic branding, everyone mentions McDonald's, they mention Netflix, they mention Intel. And there's not that many brands that get mentioned that didn't start that journey. I'm trying to think how long ago all of them would have started. Obviously, Netflix wasn't that long, but it was still like 2009 or something. It was still 15 plus years ago.
Just Eat would be the newest, I think. I think Just Eat would be the most integrated and widely known of, let's say, infancy in terms of a brand sonic strategy. But it is a good point, because it's like this crazy thing that happened all these years ago, and even before that with radio, that was so effective and had such great impact that then everyone was like, oh, we don't want to have that much impact. We probably shouldn't do that. Did they have these discussions? Oh, well, we have too much impact. Should we take sound out of the equation? That's a good idea, Jeff. Yeah, let's get rid of sound because we're making too much money. People know us too easily. We want to be more mysterious and aloof.
It's quite interesting, though, because I was just thinking then, what made the change? Like, why were brand assets dropped in such a drastic, harsh, stark way? And I wonder if it's just social media. I wonder if it's the pace of content took over. And now I think we're having this interesting pivot now where content quantity is still up there. I think people are talking a lot more about quality rather than just boshing out low quality content. But with that, I think comes brand, because there's this opportunity. Like, how do we bring back continuity now between all of these pieces of content? But yet, sticking a logo on the screen puts a lot of people off. So sound is a really good benefit for that. But I wonder if that was part of the conversation as to why it's dropped off.
Be interesting when you said that. I'm curious as to if you went back to McDonald's social media content, does it have that sonic element to it, or did they? I think it's a hard one because obviously it's an ad. You know what I mean? So it's like
the ones we saw last week.
It's McDonald's, but like everything they're going to do on socials, people are going to know it's an ad. They're not trying to walk this submersive line where they're like want to just be seen as like, oh, this is just a cool brand that's doing some cool content, as opposed to like selling to you, I guess. But it'd be interesting to see whether they used it early on.
Yeah, it would be. And also the ads that I saw were like YouTube ads. They were landscape form. My algorithm doesn't give me McDonald's in portrait on TikTok and Instagram. And I actually don't know what the laws are around that, because it's essentially junk food. So I don't know if they can.
Definitely
I know there's some areas you can't. Well, there's some areas you can't advertise certain things, isn't there?
Gambling and things would be, but like food companies are under no legal obligation to make healthy food for people. They're not in charge of they're not responsible for people's nutrition and health. They can't do certain things in certain
more in terms
regions.
of paid advertising, because I know, like you say, you can't do some alcohol brands in certain spaces and certain, like Betway, when we're working with them, there's certain places they can't promote, but YouTube
of course,
isn't one of those. And I wonder if that's because it's streaming TV.
Yeah, I don't know. Like gambling's obviously gambling's got an age restriction on it, whereas McDonald's has Happy Meals. You know what I mean? Like the idea that you could sell something to it's completely targeted towards a toddler, you know, and then not have anything on social media would seem like a crazy disparity there for sure.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, because so many of our conversations are recently aimed around Betway or McDonald's with their campaigns. I'm surprised I haven't seen anything popping up on my phone. I'm surprised that Apple's not listening to me.
Yeah, I mean, I should definitely be getting McDonald's because I fucking love double cheeseburgers. Like, if anyone should be getting targeted ads on Instagram and TikTok, it should 100% be
They'll
me.
definitely have stuff up there. I'm going to do some research after this just to see how much of their social content, because one strategy I think brands are really missing out on, and anyone listening should see if there's a way to bring this into your world. But using sound at the beginning of content to stop people doing that doom scroll, I think is a huge opportunity that we're trying to find the right brand to do this. Because the more that people know a certain sound, or what I think is more exciting, the more that people know the sound of a product that they use, and obviously I'm talking more technology, I always refer to drones with DJI. When you turn the drone on and you hear that di-di-di-di, anyone that flies a drone will know that sound. If I heard that at the beginning of something, I would stop for like that microsecond that would pause me from the next scroll. I think there's a huge opportunity there. So it'd be interesting to see if McDonald's are going to bring this strategy forward, because at the minute, both of these things we're talking about today are at the end of the campaign, not the beginning.
Yeah, well, exactly. And then I think that's where it walks the line between, you know, is it intentionally an ad or is it trying to be brand building content that's trying to fly underneath the radar of people skipping ads because they don't want to be advertised to and they want to be using social media, you know. But that's one of the big things, you know, what is it, 70% of people skip content if they think it's an ad, and that's why we've always talked about thinking it's the reason why brands aren't using sonic logos with visual logos at the end because it makes it feel like an ad. And so a great way of getting that recall and awareness would be to subversively have your sonic logo as part of the track, or, peppered within the content itself, so it's not so in your face.
Yeah, and that's a really important thing to mention. It's an important hurdle we face a lot, is that brands thinking about sonic logos having to be paired with an animation,
and at the end,
at the end rather than at the beginning or midway, etc. So I think that's a really important thing to point out, because I think there's some space for some disruption there.
What is it like? What do you think it really means for brands then? This thing that McDonald's have done, like, what do you think is the most exciting thing for brands that either have a sonic logo or are looking to explore sonic world? Where do you think it should shift their thinking?
So one thing I do, when you're a legacy brand like McDonald's, the whistle or the ba 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 ba, that after a while becomes almost subconscious, because you're so used to it. I'd love to see, in fact, we're going to talk about Joe Sauer soon, but maybe this is a challenge we should set him, is to give us some info on this, is when you've heard that whistle of McDonald's for 5 years, does the emotion, how long does it take for the emotion to diminish from that? Or will it always be kind of triggering the emotion, assuming the product is always great?
Yeah, I reckon.
Does it diminish, or does it just re-trigger?
They haven't changed their logo, have they? Because you see the logo and it makes you feel something. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
so like their visual logo, like it's always the same. They don't feel the need to reinvent the M's because there's all this emotion attached to that yellow, red, and the M.
Exactly. So part of me wonders whether or not there's an argument to be, and it relies on that really, whether there's an argument to be made of, they've done this jungle drum thing. Does that snap people out of their, I know it, but I wasn't expecting that, even if it's partly subconscious?
Well, you had a good point when we were talking about it over WhatsApp, and the big arch is this big, impact, epic product release they're trying to do, and you suggested that the adaptation of the sonic logo was to mirror the sort of epicness, as opposed to the more whimsical, joyful whistle that you have, and you thought that might be create a bit of friction between the launch and the brand, and that might be why they were doing it, which I thought was interesting, and shows how cool the future could be in terms of having such a great rhythmical element to your sonic logo that the actual instrumentation can significantly change, still be recognized, but pair and really complement a product, an activation, whatever it might be.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think matching the energy. I'd love to know if they did have a conversation about that, just to your point there, as to whether or not they were like, hang on a minute, if McDonald's is going to bring this new product out, it's going to be about the big arch, and it's a big voiceover, and it's like full of energy, like big zoom ins, making everything look big. And then it went like, is that actually got impact anymore? Or is it just kind of been said like, we're this big powerhouse brand now, but we've got this cute little whistle at the end? Like, I'd love to know if that was the conversation they had internally, or whether or not there was another angle that they came at it from. And also, I'd love to know whether or not that conversation happened at the end or the beginning or somewhere in the middle.
Well, and who with? Like, are they in-house? Do they have a creative agency that put the ad together that suggested it? Do they have a sound part?
Do a lot of their stuff, don't they? So it would be interesting to see the creative
element. Yeah, exactly. Like, does somebody, the creative director, take it as an idea, and then,
or did they put it all together? And then they were like, hang on a minute, the whistle sounds a bit silly now. But maybe not. I really don't know, but I'd love to know if anybody is listening or watching this knows. Please entertain us with a conversation. I'd love to know. So let's move to Joe Sauer and his research recently. Let's just give him a bit of an intro as to what he does and what you saw the other day from his research.
Well, I mean, it plays into the McDonald's thing, like pretty pivotal in terms of what actually Joe Sauer, he's a leading expert in audio branding research from, I guess, the psychological implicit bias testing, I think, is what he does to help brands have actual hard data on the effectiveness of their sonic strategy. And he had a great post the other day that was talking about rhythm being the most memorable parts. And the reason that I found that really interesting was the parallel that he was talking about between rhythm creates language out of sound. And you can't have language without rhythm. And so all these logos that are just drones and shimmering soundscapes, they're all blurring into one, and they're not speakable, and they're not sort of ownable in that space. And I think the McDonald's one is perfect because they can change the whole sound, but the rhythm of it, like I would argue that they could have just had hits doing that rhythm, and people would have understood what it was. They wouldn't even have had to have followed the melody.
Yeah.
And I think it would have still been as effective in showing the power of the rhythm. But I think it's interesting because I think people are veering into these sort of more soundscapey SFX logos in some kind of idea that jingles and rhythm are too cliche, but really you having a sonic identity to be memorable. And so then if you are taking out one of the main aspects of what makes something memorable just to try and be cool, then why are you even doing it? Like you should be trying to use rhythm in a cool way, a non-cliche way to create. And I guess that's the thing, like it could be rhythmical without being overly melodic. Because I think the overly melodic stuff is what makes things sound a little bit dated sometimes and a bit too expected.
I'd agree with that. I'd agree on the whole because you'd have to really choose your instrumentation, I think, very cleverly or purely by luck for that to last. Or like, I guess in McDonald's sense, it's always voice. Even with a whistle, it's kind of human created. So that's harder to be dated. But if you heard something, I'm trying to think of an example of something that felt dated after a while. There's a range of instruments, I think, that will last forever. I think piano is a good example as well. Piano will just last forever. Same with guitar. But you could choose some like electronic sounds that feel really dated or very of a time. It's kind of like popular music.
Definitely. Yeah,
you can
100%.
tell when songs are made in the early 2000s or the
100%.
70s or the 80s, right?
Yeah,
so you can fall into that trap, and I think that's where expertise really helps. But I agree with you in terms of the rhythmic value is quite interesting because I think it goes back to this primal state where you could tap anything back or you could rhythmically hum something back, I think, a lot easier than people can pitch sometimes.
But I think the interesting thing that's been uncovered with the McDonald's is that yes, you can have, if you have solid rhythm, then yes, you could have the electronic sound that sounds really current now, and then in 3 years you can use the same potentially melody and rhythm and change the sound, and you still have those discernible, recognizable elements that you've embedded in your brand, which is what McDonald's have done. It's not necessarily because they think the whistle is dated, because as you said, the human element of that I think will be everlasting. Yeah. But I think that's the idea that I think is really exciting about it, is that you could have it across different campaigns, and different territories. You could have one that's aimed at, let's say you're going for the 50 to 70-year-old market, and that's a soft piano sound, still doing the same rhythm. It could even be slightly slowed down, or it could be the same tempo, depends on the mood. And then for the same brand approaching the 25 to 40-year-olds, it could be, let's just say, an electric guitar if you wanted, or it could be a synth sound, but it's doing the same rhythm and everything, but they're going out in different territories and different channels, but they're all still pulling back to that same core of like a hook is rhythm and melody. That's the thing that people remember. It's what they remember in songs, everything. So it's like, it's really great because it's showing the effectiveness of that and how it can flex over time so that you're not stuck.
Yeah, hugely. And I also ultimately, it's just fun. I keep coming back to like with all these elements. What's beautiful is being able to back it up with science, and we really nerd out about it. I really enjoy it. Actually, if you just had something that was really fun, the energy of that comes off so well anyway. Like it's a way we've been able to communicate as humans for years anyway, and it's all based on energy and it's based on emotion. Even if you go all the way back to caveman times, when they were communicating through sound, and they would have had song and rhythmic elements as well as part of their lives. It's been so ingrained in us forever.
It's inflection as well.
Yeah,
it's like you were saying. You made a post about it in terms of the importance of sound over like getting a text and the different ways it can be read, and the different inflections and the different energy and mood that it can impart on the person receiving it, as opposed to with a sound that's there. Totally. And I think as well, the other aspect of it is, a lot of branding teams, they get brand fatigue, both with visuals and with sound. And so if you're then providing data to back up the effectiveness of slightly shifting and adapting and expanding your Sonic logo, then it just makes it more exciting for them and to think, oh, how could the Sonic logo sound in this instance?
Totally.
For this
Totally
campaign
agree.
here, while still maintaining that core.
Totally
Brilliant.
agree. And if it's executed well enough, there's no sacrifice of recognition, I don't think, as well.
Not at all.
I think as long as you're not too far extreme, like it would be interesting, the drum one that McDonald's have done recently with the big jungle drums.
Yeah.
How long would they have had to have their other logos for that to be recognized, where people go, oh, I can see it? Or how many, if they did that too early, maybe people would have missed the point because they didn't know the logo well enough. But I don't know until we've done some research now against this new way of approaching like these one-off campaigns having their own specific Sonic logo that we all recognize, but has different textures and has kept those fundamentals of rhythm and melody
and strong rhythm. Because that's the thing, like, if you just have a swell and a little end note, like the Sony one, it's a cool logo, but like you can't change that because it'll just sound like something different.
Yeah.
You can't change the instrumentation at all. You can't change the pitch. You could change the end note instrumentation, I suppose, but you don't have that much flexibility within that because it doesn't have the rhythm. And I think that's the interesting part of like Joe's post.
I was just thinking in my mind back to your Just Eat example as well. Like you could tap. You could decipher that into different things, different elements. It's
100%.
not quite pacey enough, but you can get the gist. If you saw that, if you heard the rhythmic element of that in context of a campaign or an ad or something, you'd know exactly what that was.
100%. And there even in. And then there's other elements within a brand's voice, quite literally, like the McDonald's VOs, the voiceovers they have, that guy is pretty much the same voice all the time who's talking on their ads. Like you could even hear a radio one with that person talking about a burger, not even saying McDonald's, and then have the sort of rhythm at the end. And I think your brain would connect the pieces on it. But yeah, like the Just Eat, with any Just Eat visual on the screen, you would 100%, like you could have Christina Aguilera tap dancing it at the end frame and you'd get that rhythm and your brain would put it all together and you'd be hearing the Just Eat vocal.
I have to ask, do you know if Christina tap dances?
I'm sure she does. She's in the Mickey Mouse Club, isn't she?
I was kind of just hoping you'd be like, oh, that is an actual thing. I have seen this happen. But
she could dance. If you can dance like Christina Aguilera, I'm sure she could chuck on some tap dancing shoes.
I'd love that 22 minutes into this podcast, if that was the biggest takeaway that people took, was that finding out that Christina Aguilera tap dances.
That's why I do this. That's why I turn up, George.
So I think the takeaway from this episode for me is brands, creative agencies, CMOs, brand managers, anyone that's involved in any kind of creative and involved in brands. I'd love to see this happen more often, and I'd love to hear from you about how you might apply this, or like any campaigns that you've already applied this to, because I just want to see it a lot more often. And I think that's the seed I'd love to plant today, for people to go away is thinking, what do we have that we could have some fun with? I left a comment today. I can't remember the name of the lady. She Joe Bird, and she did a great post about the fact that people are so immersed into statistics right now. But the statistics that trend are always because somebody had a creative idea that hadn't yet been done. And then everyone follows the creative aspect of what happened because the statistics say it was really good. And obviously their statistics are never as high or never match the original statistics that they saw, right? So how do we create new ideas if we're always looking at healthy statistics? I don't actually believe that world exists. I think really good statistics only come about when someone did something really original and it did something great, right? And then it got measured and then it looked awesome on paper, so everyone then copies it. So how do we get brands so planted the seed, and now I'm thinking for maybe in the next episode, how do we get brands to actually just embrace this and be bold and have fun with it and trust that having fun with their elements and with their assets is going to create some kind of conversation amongst audience, amongst peers, whoever that's going to be.
Yeah, I suppose the other precursor to that I would love as a takeaway for people is, having listened to this episode and loved it with all your heart and soul, and has it changed your perspective on potentially starting to have some of your own Sonic assets, because you've now seen that they're far more flexible and fun and modern than what you may have considered a Sonic logo to be, that you may have been holding off from because it wasn't aligned with your brand? Like, that would be the first thing, because then if people could be listening, they're like, we don't even have a Sonic logo because we thought they're old shitty jingles. Whereas now it could be like, oh, I can see all the stuff I can do with it. Maybe I need to get something, and then move on to, like you're saying, to be able to have more fun.
Yeah, because really what McDonald's is showing to the world now very boldly is that so many brands are now 2 steps behind them, not just 1 step behind them, because they've
100%.
They're now 2 steps.
That's
where we're at now. So take with that what you will. No pressure, but all right then, mate. Well, congratulations, we're back.
Episode 1, season 2. Good job. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you very much. I also noticed halfway through this, on my computer camera, not my phone camera, even though my phone is set up, plugged in, and everything in between.
Absolute rookie.
We're rough and ready.
You tell you've been away from the game, so I'm just going to look way crisper.
You're just going to look crispy nuggets, mate.
You're welcome. Crispy nuggets, McDonald's. I love it.
Anything else you want to say?
No. Goodbye.